Thumbs up.
It's 6:30. I'll call the regularly scheduled city council meeting for April 27th to order. The first order of business is the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next, we'll adopt the agenda. Lori, any changes to the printed agenda?
There are no changes.
Someone make a motion, please.
I move we accept the agenda.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We've adopted the agenda. Next is the open forum. It's an opportunity for citizens to discuss issues with the council on items not on the agenda. Individuals are asked to limit their comments to 5 minutes. Is there anybody who wishes to address the council? Please, is this John?
Yes.
Yeah, please approach the podium, and I'd ask you to sit so that we can pick your comments up on the microphone.
Chair over here.
No, we don't have any chairs there.
Mr. Mayor, City Council members, my name is John Iverson. I live at 1032 Anthony Way here in Victoria. I've lived in Victoria for about a year and a half. And I have been quite active in the community in a whole variety of both civic and church activities. I am here to call for the voluntary resignation of the mayor. I don't take it very lightly at all, nor do I think that the mayor, the city council, the city staff, and all the attendees here this evening should take it very lightly. And I think the press should not take it, the local press should not take it very lightly also. Because I think it is very serious situation that we have here in our city. In the process of being very active in the community, and there's a lot of people that come up to me and they say, what the heck is going on here? I mean, what is going on in this city? You know, and you look at, you know, you look at all of the troubles, the lawsuit, the pending lawsuit with the mayor, city council. You look at the Victoria Gazette, who doesn't seem to objectively respond to or report whatever is going on. The Chanhassen Villager seems to have a pretty good handle on what's happening, and they seem to report that quite well. But it's a real mess. We have questionable land deals. We have questionable locations of buildings and of development.
Excuse me, Mayor, a point of order. You wanted to address an issue that you're not talking about.
I am talking about it.
Okay?
Yeah, I have 5 minutes and I'll get to it.
Go ahead.
Okay? So people are asking me, what is the problem? You know, is it incompetence? Is it dishonesty? Is it lack of knowledge? Is it arrogance? We're going to have to find out. And I think we'll find out pretty soon exactly what the situation is. I do believe that it is just a major breakdown of any level of decorum and leadership within the city of what many people are seeing. And as usual, there probably isn't too many people that are just paying too much attention to it. They're just happily going along paying their taxes and paying no attention whatsoever. But I think there does have to be proper leadership on all of the issues, the morals and the ethical issues. And Mr. Mayor, please resign so this community can get on with the business of growth and progress in the way that it should. Thank you very much for your time, and that is my point.
Just for the record, I have no intention of resigning. You're done, please.
Thank you.
I'm going to reread the statement that I issued the day after the event. My motor vehicle was stopped by a Carver County Sheriff's deputy, and I was subsequently detained and later charged with misdemeanor driving a motor vehicle while under the influence of alcohol. Please understand that I take this matter very seriously and will provide my full cooperation with my attorney and the court system to see this matter is resolved both fairly and as expeditiously as possible. I will take full accountability for any consequences my actions warrant. As always, I cherish my long-time service to the residents of our great community of Victoria and greatly look forward to working towards all the great plans we have for our city. And that's my statement. Anybody else wish to address the council? Seeing none, we have a visitor's presentation, the service awards for the Sheriff's Explorers. Deputy Baker?
Mr. Mayor, Council, members of the audience, I would like to present Devin Wheelock and Connor Campbell. They're two of our Sheriff's Office Explorer candidates. The Explorer program is run through the Boy Scouts of America and is primarily set up to allow high school age kids that have an interest in law enforcement to kind of get a hands-on experience with what it is that we do. They give a tremendous amount of time to the city as well as other venues in the county where they're needed. I've been an Explorer advisor for several years where I'm one of our officers that trains and works with the Explorers, and I was very proud for myself, but also for them, and honored that the city wanted to recognize them for their efforts at the library grand opening, helping direct traffic, get people where they need to go. There's other things in town that the Explorers have helped with, Volksfest being probably the big one. I'm working with Randy Miller and the rest of the Business Owners Association as well. We're going to get them involved in the classic car night. Just as, you know, somebody else that can be out there and help, and they can get experience and put to use all the training that we're, I shouldn't say feeding into them, but training into them in our bi-monthly or bi-weekly trainings that we actually hold here in Victoria at the Victoria Fire Station. So it's a pleasure for me to introduce Devin Wheelock and Connor Campbell.
If you would, just a minute, let me read a citation we're going to give you. In recognition of your service as a Carver County Sheriff Explorer for providing professional and safe traffic control services during the Victoria Library grand opening and assisting attendees entering the facility with the utmost courteous service, your volunteerism to the City of Victoria and Carver County during other functions is commendable and greatly appreciated. You guys are starting to volunteer. It's a great way to live your life, and you're starting out at a young age, and you're to be commended. So if you come forward, I'm going to give you the citation and ask you to take the congratulations of each of the council members. Devin? Take that off. Honor, I like that name. Congratulations. Congratulations, Devin. Congratulations.
Congratulations. Thank you. Good job. Congratulations and thank you. Thanks.
I should also offer the council's thanks to Deputy Baker and we can't have your attention diverted from the camera, Josh.
What's that?
We can't have your attention diverted from the camera.
What's that?
They're taking your picture.
To the camera.
No, the camera.
We don't want to keep Woodsy waiting. One more, or are we done?
I can.
The next item on the agenda is the consent agenda, where all items are,
We do have one visitor presentation. The Carver County Library, Kathy Boniani and Heidi Hawks are here to give us an update on the
oh my goodness.
2014 annual library report and to tell us some fun statistics about how the Victoria.
Heidi and Kathy, I accept my apology.
That's okay, that's fine. Okay, and we've gotten that on. We are so thrilled, both Kathy and I are so thrilled to be here to do the State of the Library address. Each of our full-service branch libraries will be getting a State of the Library address annually, and you are one of our full-service libraries, and we're very thrilled. When the Victoria Library opened, it was a dream come true for many people. For many years, you'd worked hard to have the full-service library, and we are thrilled to be able to offer that to you. The Victoria Library is not a standalone library. Victoria is actually part of a whole consortium of libraries in our county. It's one of 6 full-service libraries, and as such, it not only provides you with materials that you might have been able to afford, but what the county is able to provide for you, as well as having group purchasing, which makes the dollars of the county go even further for you. But in addition to that, Carver County is a part of the MELSA system, the Metropolitan Library Service Agency system, which also gives us many, many benefits. We get state funding and federal funding because we are a regional library system member. And we also get many different technologies as well as materials from MELSA. So it gives you much more than you could ever have imagined. Our library works on the basis of being very strategic in what we do to get the most benefit out of the monies that we have. We work on a 4-point plan. We enhance access to content and technology. We optimize our staff resources. We expand our community presence, and we transform experiences and spaces. In 2014, you can see all the things that happened because we were working on that 4-point system. But besides that, if you look at the activity of people, how people used us, over 1 million circulations of print materials, and you'll notice that besides that, 48,468 ebooks were checked out in our Carver County libraries. Perhaps you saw the Star Tribune article that talked about the fact that libraries are going down in circulation, but they're seeing not as much as they would have because of the ebooks. We went up 20,000 because of the ebooks. You'll also notice that we had people visited each of our branch libraries, but our web visits were at 284,298. We have over 15,000 children that attend our story times. Can you imagine? 6 locations and over 15,000 children. And then during the summer, over 10,000 children came to summer reading program. We are reaching out to people, and we're very proud of that. And it's because of our individual libraries and our individual branch managers. So it's with great pride that I present your branch manager, who is phenomenal. You are so lucky to have her, Kathy Boniani.
Thank you. I have been so delighted to be part of the Victoria Library since it opened on March 7th. I know some of you were able to be there at that opening on March 7th, and most of you have been in the library since it's been open. But we had over 1,000 people come to our grand opening on March 7th. We checked out over 650 items that day, and we issued 78 new library cards. Our children's story times, we're able to offer 2 of those every week in Victoria Library, one for toddlers on Monday mornings and one for families on Wednesday mornings. And those have been getting a great attendance. Our children's librarian is very musical, so she adds some great elements to her story times every week. In addition, we've had McPhail come and do some music story times. And we're going to try something interesting this summer by doing some story walks out along the bike trail, where we have big pages out of a picture book, kind of at intervals along the trail, and the kids and families go from page to page as they hike down the trail. We're cooperating with the park system on that one. Our adult programs and author events, you probably recognize the room on that slide. David Housewright was here for our grand opening, and William Kent Kruger attracted 120 people earlier this month, and we have several other author visits planned, as well as computer classes and genealogy classes for the fall, and many other events. Our Victoria Help Desk is something a little new, and I put a brochure about the help desk in each of your packets. This is something I really hope that you'll help us spread the word about, because it is something unique to our Victoria Library, and I think can be a great asset to the community. We have a technology assistant working in the library most all the hours that the library is open. And she is able to work with people one-on-one to answer most of their technology questions, those related to things like ebooks and downloadables, but also just questions you might have about Excel or Microsoft Word or some other computer program that you might be interested in. So if you know of anybody who could use that computer help, she had 134 different people ask her technology questions in the month of March, which I think is great. Yeah. And they've asked her questions on some of the topics listed on the screen about just generally how to use their email, iPads, devices, databases, how to scan things, how to file their taxes online, all kinds of questions that people had. So help us spread the word on that. We'd really appreciate it. Books and magazines are a key part of the library. We have a little less than 10,000 books now. We're still adding them as they go out. And we also are continuing to add ebooks. People can download those in the library, or they can download those from home. If they're working on them in the library, they can use the special stations shown on the screen and get the help of our technology assistant if they need some help. We also have quite a few public computers. We have 14 public computers, 8 iPads people can use in the library, and we also have a dozen laptops. And most importantly, no library can do as well as they should unless they have friends. And the Victoria Library is very lucky to have a wonderful friends group that has formed here in Victoria. And the volunteers that have joined that group are helping us in many ways. They started out by helping us at our grand opening, and they have started helping the library with some financial support for a summer reading program and some items that are support for our children's story time program. So we are delighted to have those friends. Does anyone have any questions or comments for us?
I just offer a comment. I was here the night when William Kent Kruger spoke, and people were standing elbow to elbow, and this room was jammed, and I'm glad the fire captain didn't show up that night. But in addition to the kind of the feeling in this room, I mean, the majority of those people migrated out into our downtown area and maybe had stayed for dinner and help add to the vitality of the city. And that's exactly the kind of symbiotic relationship that we expected to happen when you find folks decided to come to our library, your library.
Thank you.
Anybody else have?
I just wanted to say we have really enjoyed having them in the same building. It brings a different kind of energy, and for myself, I've noticed that when I'm coming and going from the building, I see your staff, but I'm also running into our community members and getting to catch up with them, you know, just real quick, but in a way that wasn't in our single-use facility. So it just seems like a really nice synergy, and we love having the energy, particularly of the little kids in the building on a daily basis.
Well, we love being here.
Thanks a lot, Lori. The city staff have been wonderful to work with.
Thank you both.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda is the approval of the consent agenda, where a number of motions are approved with one motion. That's not by any stretch of the imagination to demean or indicate that these items are not important. They are, but they're deemed to be non-controversial and will be approved again with one motion unless anybody on the council wishes to remove an item. Does anybody wish to remove an item?
No.
No, thank you.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda, which I'm going to take a little different path this month and just call out the items that are on here, just without discussion or comment, but just to raise awareness to what is on the consent agenda. So for this month, the consent agenda includes the minutes of the April 13th City Council workshop, the minutes of the April 13th City Council meeting, the claims roster from April 27th, the water obstacle permit for the Schutz Lake Skiers Association, appointment of Stan Hammerski to the Victoria for a Lifetime Committee, concrete replacement at the Recreation Center, and crack sealing and seal coating.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? We've approved the consent agenda. Thank you, Tom. I think that's a good practice to, again, there could be a tendency to think that these items are not important. To the contrary, they're important. They're just not controversial in our view. Next, we'll move to the public hearing, the second reading of the dog ordinance and the summary publication.
Thank
Want to
you.
kick this off?
Yes, by way of history, we will hold a public hearing shortly to discuss this. But in November of last year, we had discussed whether the time had come that licensing dogs was no longer necessary for the city. Our primary goal through licensing being to reunite the pets with their owners. So many advances in technology have been made that licensing no longer seemed like the most efficient way to do that, either for the city or for our residents. And so at that time, we eliminated the requirement for the year 2015. We have not processed any dog licenses this year. And we are now coming back with the ordinance changes that would reflect that. We've gotten only positive feedback from residents that they appreciate that we would take a look and say, is this something we need to continue doing, rather than just continuing to do it because we have always done it. We do maintain a requirement that animals be either microchipped or wear some kind of an identification tag. Numerous things could qualify for that. When you get your rabies shot from your vet, that usually comes with an ID tag that we can call the vet and say, who did you issue tag number X to? You can have one printed at the little kiosk at PetSmart or whichever animal store you're shopping at, or you can have your animal microchip. So we're not specific about how you might accomplish that, but just help us get to the goal of reuniting you with your pet in the event that you are separated. And so we did hear the first reading of this ordinance change at our April 11th meeting. Tonight we will be hearing the second reading, taking public comment, and considering adoption. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Any questions for the city manager before we open up the public hearing?
I'll make a comment. So initially, anybody that I talked to about this issue was a little bit surprised that we would do that they assumed it was a revenue generator only, never looked at it as a service, and we, the city, looked at it as a service. And so that was a little bit of an eye-opener. And since that time, just a week or so ago, the animal control officer stopped by when I was in my front yard and asked me if I knew whose dog was in the back of his truck. And I couldn't answer the question, suggested maybe they go to the mayor's house because it was Saturday and he would know who to talk to for sure, but he didn't want to bother you on your day off. But seriously, to the point of, if we were going to provide a service, it only works Monday through Friday. So more to the point of, let's not take the money if we can't provide the service. But there's a secondary piece is there a way to, put some information out there, or a way for law enforcement to connect you know, the dog had like a rabies tag or a vet tag, but it didn't have an owner's name or a phone number, and it was Saturday afternoon and nobody was open. So, you know, in terms of reuniting owners with their pets, of course, it's the owner's responsibility to keep track of their animal. But if there's a way to somehow get that information to them to connect those two in the off hours, it would be helpful.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, because that really raised a question in my mind, because the officer stopped by my house too and asked me if I knew whose dog it was. And the question that came to my mind is, do the deputies carry the chip reader for dogs that have chips?
The community service officers have a microchip reader.
Okay, so the dog probably did not have a chip then. Okay.
Both of these gentlemen speak with authority. They each have a dog, and the only one on this side of the table who doesn't have a dog is the one who couldn't answer the question on Saturday had anybody shown up, so. Any other comments before we open up for the public hearing? With that, I'll open up the public hearing. Anybody wish to address the council on this topic? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. Would someone like to make a motion?
I move we approve Agenda Statement 15-73, adopt ordinance number 387, an ordinance amending Chapter 6, removing the city licensing requirement.
I'll second that. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? We've approved the dog ordinance change.
Mayor, if I may, so you've approved the ordinance number 388. We have a technical glitch on your next action item. Your next item is to approve the summary publication of the ordinance. The ordinance, as you know, ordinances in Minnesota have to be published to become lawful. It is possible under state law to just publish a summary to save money. It costs more money to publish the full body of an ordinance, and so this city, like most, will, in any ordinance that's longer than a couple of paragraphs, publish a summary with the full version being available at the library and at City Hall. The statute, though, unfortunately, we're down to 3 council members, as you can all see. The statute says you have to have a 4/5 of all council member vote to authorize summary publication. So we're not able to authorize tonight the summary publication unless one of the council members arrives. And so I guess I would ask you to table that. You certainly don't want to go forward. I don't know that time is of the essence on this. I think you don't want to spend the extra money to publish it. You can bring back that resolution at your next meeting, authorize at your next meeting the summary publication. That will delay very briefly the effectiveness of that ordinance amendment, but I don't think time is of the essence on that. So.
And I have a motion, please, to withdraw the last approved motion and to table this item for the next city council meeting.
Do we have to withdraw the previous one?
Yeah, no, Mayor, I'm sorry, I wasn't clear. Your action on the ordinance was perfectly valid.
Yeah.
You can, with a majority of the 3 of you, you have a quorum of the council present tonight, so you can act tonight on the ordinance itself. There was a separate agenda item to adopt the summary publication that you cannot act on. So I'd ask you to table that.
Yeah, I move we table Agenda Statement 1574.
Second.
Does that do it?
That would be the resolution. That would be fine.
That's correct, yep.
And we vote.
Okay, I'll second that. And all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? We've tabled the publication of the summary.
Yeah, Mayor, so you have tabled action on Resolution 1528, which would authorize the summary publication. I imagine, I don't want to speak for Lori, but I imagine that will come back to you on your next council agenda, on the consent agenda, on the 27th.
I'm looking.
Thereafter, you will be able to publish.
So Resolution 1527, this item will come up again
Sorry,
later on the
1527,
agenda as well.
Yeah.
Yes.
We will have, just to expedite my talking to you, we'll have the same issue with respect to 1528 on the next item. Again, the next item, there is a little bit more, I think, of a time element. There is no reason that you cannot adopt, there's no reason that you can't adopt ordinance number 388 if that's the will of the group. We'll have to do the same thing, though, with the resolution on the next item, so, for the same reason.
In the publication of the summary, the developer takes some but not total comfort in the fact that it's not legal until the summary is published?
Mayor and Council, that is theoretically correct, but of course, the fundamental action that you're being asked to take on the next item, I don't want to steal others' thunder, but you're being asked to approve the preliminary plat, not the final plat, so that there should
Okay.
be sufficient comfort for developer to continue to move forward. And Ben and I actually talked with developers representative, and I think we're all on the same page about moving forward, so, if that's the will of the council. So no, there should not be a delay.
Well, let's go into that next item then, the second reading of the Lake Point rezoning from ag to residential and the PUD and summary publication. Recognizing that the summary publication will wait for another reading. Ben?
Mr. Mayor and Council, the request before you tonight, as you've previously noted, is the zoning public hearing. And if I can just provide a brief overview, which I had also done at the last council meeting at the first reading, just first identifying where we are in that process. So tonight we're considering the rezoning. There will be another item following the zoning public hearing requesting action on preliminary plat, subject to, of course, achieving rezoning of the property. And should we have preliminary plat approval, the plat would then move on through the final plat process where construction drawings are provided for city review, and the final plat being the final step in the process to allowing for the lots to be sold and built upon. This particular project is a request on behalf of Hartman Communities. Owns approximately a 40-acre parcel that's under consideration for the preliminary plat, which is the next piece, but I thought I'd speak to it as the zoning is related to what is also on that preliminary plat. This is a project that had previously been presented to council as a sketch plat under the name of Cry North. Planning Commission has reviewed the zoning request, in this case for the 13-lot subdivision. All of these lots are approximately 13,000 square feet in size. Typical width, which would be the frontage at the street, 90 feet wide, depth 145 feet, and then the setbacks being requested, which are also bound by zoning, are the 25-foot front yard setback, 30-foot rear, 10-foot side yard setback, that would be 10 feet on each side. And there is also, because of proximity to Carl Cry Lake, a 150-foot setback for any structure from the original high water level of the lake. I can certainly talk more if you'd like, just an overview of the plat so you can understand what that is about as well, but specific to the zoning, that's what's under consideration with this agenda item before you open the public hearing.
Comments, questions? Tom? Jim? With that, I'll open the public hearing. Anybody wish to address the council on this topic? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Invite a motion.
I will make a motion to adopt ordinance number 388, amending section 30 by rezoning all property within Lake Point from ag, agricultural district, to R, residential district, and PUD, planned unit development standards, and to table resolution 1528 authorizing the summary publication.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? We've approved the rezoning and tabled the summary. Continuing with Lake Point.
So a little more detail on the preliminary plat. We talked about the 13 lots in the subdivision. Utilities through the property, there's a trunk water main that has been extended from the what we would refer to as the Lake Bridge neighborhood or the Cray Lakes subdivisions directly to the north. That water main has been extended up to the property boundary here with the intent that that will extend south, connecting to the Ambergate subdivision. Sanitary sewer was extended from Ambergate up to the property line. That will be extended through the cul-de-sac and then have the services to all of the lots within the subdivision. The street itself is a continuation of Blue Stem Drive, ending in a cul-de-sac. And then we do have, just based on the shape of the property, 2 common private driveways providing access to 3 lots, 1 for each of the common private, 3 lots per each common private driveway. You can see the 3 here with the access driveway identified in gray, a lighter gray, and the other common private driveway on the south side of the cul-de-sac, providing access to these 3 single-family lots.
Ben, can I jump in on this
Sure.
one? Just, I guess it's a question. I know there's at least one other example within the city of this kind of a extended private driveway. It's off Cavalletti Court in Lake Town. And I guess I'm just wondering if this provides any particular legal challenges when property is trading hands, or if there are any, I think it's a private drive then that needs the collective property owners to maintain it. Has that been troublesome in any way, shape, or form in any other place within the city?
On any of our current projects, I don't know that I could speak to knowing of any issues. What we have talked, we being the city attorney and myself, have talked through creating language for these common private driveways that are maybe a little bit more clear in identifying roles and responsibilities of those properties that are served by them, so that any confusion that could arise as properties change hands with regard to maintenance or access ability to get through that area would be clear to anyone that would assume those properties.
Thank you. And you know, I'm also always cognizant that legal encumbrances can have a negative effect on property value, and we certainly wouldn't want that to happen to somebody, you know, sort of without their full understanding. So,
Sure.
just want to make sure that that's clear.
Thank you.
Jim? Somebody want to make a motion?
I move we approve Resolution 15-29, a motion approving a preliminary plat and conditional use permit related to the planned unit development for Lake Point as submitted by Hartman Communities for property located at 8135 Cry Avenue and owned by Hartman Communities.
I'll second that. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? We've approved that preliminary plat. New business? Kara?
Mayor and council, I am just waiting for my picture. So the next item on the agenda is related to the parking lot across the street from City Hall. I'm going to hope you have an aerial open.
You have to be patient sometimes.
Sometimes I'm not very patient. Anyway, with opening up the new City Hall and library in the winter, we weren't able to address necessarily parking lot improvements that we feel are necessary to the lot across the street in the middle of winter. So the new building is sitting roughly about here, and a pedestrian ramp has been located approximately here to provide access to both this building and the Lakeside building. The next pedestrian ramp is up in this area. So what we'd like to do is add another ramp on the receiving side. So when you come across the street, you're coming into a pedestrian ramp. And then we need to include ADA compliant parking stalls. Right now we just have temporary ones on the street, which is not an ideal location. If you had to enter and exit out of the vehicle, you're close to traffic, versus here you have an access aisle in between. So the new pedestrian ramp would be located about here, and then we would have 2 ADA compliant stalls adjacent to the site. So at the same time, we also took a look at the overall layout. When this parking lot was constructed, it really was on a temporary basis. We owned the property, it wasn't being used for anything, so we came in, put some gravel down, and paved over the top of it and striped as many stalls in as we could. Right now, there is no entrance and exit point here, so if you come in here and you drive down here and you find out there's nowhere to park, you either drive over the curb or you reverse back down the parking lot to get out. That's a situation that always made me uncomfortable, but makes me really uncomfortable now that we have kids often in this parking lot coming and going to the library. I don't like a situation where vehicles have to back up. So we looked at reconfiguring the parking lot to eliminate that. So this is Quamaclit. The entrance will remain in its same location, and then there'll be a exit in its same location here, but we're reconfiguring the striping so that you can make a through movement. We also
when we reconstructed Quamaclit, we made the decision to not construct a sidewalk yet because we weren't quite sure what was going to happen with this block from a redevelopment perspective. So we don't want to build that sidewalk yet, but what we wanted to do was pull the parking spots back so we had some area for pedestrians to walk in front of the cars. So we'd have those little car stops would be located here, and a pedestrian could come down here and then come over to the ped ramp and cross the street. So those changes did require us to slightly widen the parking lot. This grade line here is the current edge of the parking lot, and so we would just be widening that out a small distance. We'd also be widening it out in this area a little bit to fit 2 more stalls. We end up with the same number of parking spots that we have today under this scenario, but we didn't want to get more carried away and start having to build retaining walls and grade into the steep slopes off the parking lot. So we're currently in the process of getting quotes for this work. Hopefully we'll have those quotes back for approval at the next city council meeting. Based on some preliminary numbers I've seen so far, it's looking like we're maybe on the $12,000 to $16,000 range for these improvements, because we have to do a little bit of regrading work to make these stalls meet ADA requirements. We do have funds available left in the project budget, so we went and met and reviewed those today, and we would be funding this out of the City Hall project budget. If you recall, we had a number of things that we were continuing to work our way through. We had originally not included them in the original scope of the building projects and wanted to wait till we had final numbers and things closed out to make sure we had the money available to pay for things like this. Some of the outstanding items that we're continuing to work on is we need to finalize restoration around this building. There's just still dirt. So Ann is working on getting quotes for restoring the areas around the building. We'd like to see push buttons added for the door so that you can get push button for the door to open. So we're working with the library on obtaining quotes for that work. Couple of things at the related to Public Works. We had to make some modifications to the existing building now that we moved out of it. So that work's being completed with the money that we had left over. I think that's all done now. And then we're also looking at possibly some site improvements out at the Public Works building to give us a little bit more area for material storage and possibly the salt shed. We originally kept the salt shed at the other site because we didn't have enough money available, so we're taking a look at what it would cost to move that over there to consolidate our operations. That would come back to the City Council for approval. It would be in excess of $10,000. So we're continuing to work on those things, and another one we're going to buy a couple more chairs. We figured out we don't have enough in our office, so we're ordering a few more. So some little things like that, and then obviously anything over $10,000 will come back to the council for approval. So.
And you don't need approval or anything tonight?
No, just wanted to get everybody up to speed. I'm getting a lot of questions about from the public about what we're doing across the street and what our plans are. So.
Kara, question. In looking at the schematic here, where approximately is the property line? And when you mentioned having to excavate and add a retaining wall to add more parking spaces, I'm curious if we go back and look at the average cost of adding parking spaces, what would be the cost here if we were to do that excavation, and how many spots would we pick up?
So the property line is actually all the way out here. So we do have quite a bit more property, but we'd be looking at pretty significant tree removal and grading and retaining walls. We didn't feel like it made a whole lot of sense to do that today until we understood more about what was happening to the property to the south that's currently for sale. If we knew what was happening there and knew this was our final configuration of a parking lot, I think it would make sense to take a closer look at that, and we certainly can still do that at any point in time if we start to understand better what's happening on this property.
I guess what would be interesting to understand if it doesn't take a lot of time, I recall from a statistic several years ago, it was approximately $9,500 construction cost for a new parking spot in downtown. if that's, whatever that number is, I think that was the number that I recall, but would the cost be approximate of whatever that previous?
My recollection was that the 9,500 reflected what it took us to build this and the parking lot next to City Hall. So it was, both of those construction processes were pretty simple. We just put some Class 5 down and paved them versus needing to build walls and cut trees. And so it would be higher than that, but it wouldn't be terribly difficult to get a ballpark number
I'd just
figured
like to
out for that.
understand that the order of magnitude difference, it
Right.
might be worth our while to take a look at that.
I can look.
Thank you.
Kara, I note that there are 37 stalls in the proposed layout. How many are there today?
37,
Okay, thank you.
striped.
Anything else?
No, I just did want to note too that the stop sign was installed 2 weeks ago, maybe.
Stop signs.
Stop signs, I keep doing that. Stop signs, there were 3 actually installed, and based on our observations, it seems people have adjusted to them being there. It's always a little scary when you add new traffic control, how people who drive a road frequently, you just drive and you don't notice there's a new stop sign. So the first day we had a couple of people driving through. We saw one person stop after and not know what to do. But I think everybody's adjusted now.
All right, any other comments or questions? The bandstand naming.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. This agenda item is for your consideration for naming of the bandstand. As you know, the City of Victoria and the Community Endowment Involvement, which is a nonprofit group of residents, have partnered with the construction of a bandstand, which would be located just to our north outside this building on Three Rivers property in Carver Park Reserve. The group has basically funded a great majority of the construction, which is about $350,000, and in return have requested that that facility be named the Charleston Thune Community Park. The city does have a park and facility naming policy, which lays out guidelines and criteria for the city to consider when a new park or new facilities are constructed. And in this case, one of the considerations is that the financial contribution is major and basically solely makes the development occur. The Parks and Recreation Committee at its meeting in April did recommend to you that the bandstand be named Charleston Thune Community Park, and that is staff's recommendation as well. And I certainly would be happy to answer any questions, if you have any.
No questions, but a comment, I guess. You know, as I look at this, I think, you know, if not Charleston Thune, then what? Right? I mean, these are reflections on the leaders of our community, or this is an opportunity, I guess, to kind of immortalize or to memorialize people who have made an impact on our community for the long term and for the good of the community. And so I don't know that we heard any other recommendations, but I can't think of a more fitting way to capture that contribution and that leadership. So that's my comment.
Jim?
I echo Councilmember Striegel's comments, and I'll make a motion to approve the name of the bandstand in Agenda Statement 15-76 of Charleston Thune Community Park.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We have a name for the park.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Report of the city manager?
I don't believe I have any updates to share with you tonight.
Will you be sending us postcards from Orlando tomorrow?
If you'd like, I'd be happy to.
Fair warning, residents of Victoria, the city manager is on vacation for a week. Well-deserved week.
Thank you.
Can I take just a second then before we move on to the next item to draw attention and with thanks to the Victoria Business Association for contributing the Centennial Celebration logo there. I think that was mentioned somewhere in the packet, but I wanted to draw attention to that. So thank you for another contribution to the city.
And we have one last item on the agenda, other than the correspondence. Did you want to comment on any of the correspondence that was?
No, just so everyone knows, we include items in the correspondence that would be of interest to the city council and maybe of interest to the community, or we might want to remember long-term, but we don't necessarily always intend to discuss each item. But certainly, staff welcomes questions if members of the public see something they want to discuss.
Before I ask others to join in with their reports, earlier this evening, the council met and discussed the performance of the new city manager, who we were shocked to realize she's been here 6 months. It seems like she's been here for a lot longer. And uniformly, categorically done an outstanding job of picking up and taking a disparate group of individuals and forming a team. We couldn't be, and the performance appraisal reflected that we couldn't be happier with her contribution to our success. So congratulations.
Thank you.
There's a financial component to this too. As I recall, your current compensation will increase from $107,000 to $110,000. That requires a council approval. So I'll make a motion to approve that salary increase for the city manager.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We've opposed. Congratulations. You have now some more money to spend in Disney World.
Thank you very much. I really enjoy working with the city council, the staff, and the community, and I thought we had a great dialogue about ways we can continue to work together. Thank you very much.
At the risk of embarrassing her, this lady is a real professional, and we couldn't be happier to have her on our side. So, again, thank you. Reports of the first city attorney. Do you have anything, Bob?
Mayor and council, no, I'll be out in Washington DC the rest of the week, and I'll try and send a postcard, but beyond that, I have nothing to report.
Don't be corrupted by those evil folks in
I'm
Washington.
going to try my darndest not to.
Remember your roots.
Yes, thank you.
Council, any comments or comments?
No report.
Accept the motion to close.
I move we adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We've adjourned.